Good morning. Today is Wednesday, August 31st, and this is Devotions from St. Paul Evangelical Lutheran Church in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. I'm going to take a passage today from Luke's Gospel that talks about a great banquet, and specifically about all those who are invited to this banquet and their responses. So this is from the 14th chapter of Luke's Gospel. One of the dinner guests, on hearing this, said to him, "Blessed is anyone who will eat bread in the kingdom of God." Then Jesus said to him, "Someone gave a great dinner and invited many. At the time for the dinner, he sent his slave to those to say those who had been invited, 'Come, for everything is now ready.' But they all alike began to make excuses. The first one said to him, 'I have just bought a piece of land, and I must go out and inspect it. Please accept my regrets.' Another one said, 'I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I am going to go try them out. Please accept my regrets.' Another one said to him, 'I have just been married, and therefore I cannot come.' So the slave returned and reported this to his master. Then the owner of the house became angry and said to his slave, 'Go out at once into the streets and the lanes of the town, and bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame.' And the slave said, 'Sir, what you ordered has been done, and there is still room.' Then the master said to the slave, 'Go out into the roads and lanes, and compel people to come in, so that my house may be filled. For I tell you, none of those who are invited will taste my dinner.'" Master gave a great dinner and invited many. But he did it in 3 parts. And so my first question is, when this was all done, who was invited? And I think the simple answer is everyone. So we have to kind of look at the parts and see how the invitations go. So the first ones that were invited were those that the master wanted to have in his house at his dinner. Now think about this in terms of history, and think about this in terms of today, and who might that be? Well, in terms of history, it seems to me that could well be the people of Israel, because they were God's chosen people, and he had a special love for them and took care of them and brought them out of Egypt and brought them to the promised land, and eventually they turned away from him. So that seems like an Old Testament historical part to this. But who else is invited? Do you think somebody who grows up in a family of faith and learns about things from a very young age might be one that's invited? Do you think someone who has something happen in their life can only be described as miraculous, something that comes from God, be something that's invited? I don't know. This is unclear, but there were those who were invited. But they all had excuses. So then the master said, "Go out and find poor and crippled and lame, and invite them." And so the slaves did, but there was still room. And finally the master said, "Go out to the streets and invite everyone, so that my house may be filled." It seems to me at the end of the day, the master has invited everyone who is there to his dinner. So where do we fit? What part of the invitation do we fit in? Where are we in the invitation to the dinner? Now, if you remember from Sunday, one of the parts of the gospel was, and it was just prior to this Luke's gospel, be careful when you sit where you sit when you go to a dinner. Take the low spaces and be invited to move up. Now, the invitations went exactly the opposite way. But as you go into the dinner, you're invited, you're a guest, you're wanted there. And it's a little bit important that we understand that includes all of us. We're all invited. And it really doesn't make any difference which part of the three invitations falls to us, because we're all wanted at that dinner. But then let's look at those who were first invited and what kind of excuses they had. One bought a piece of land and was going to go inspect it. Now, just between you and me, if I was going to buy a piece of land, I probably would have inspected it before I bought it. But it seems like a normal thing to want to take care of your possessions, and that's what he did. And the second one had 5 yoke of oxen, and he was going to try them out. Well, again, I would have thought normal course, he would have tried them before he bought them. But again, normal course of business. And the third one that's mentioned is someone who got married. Seems to me that that's a reason for celebration, but they didn't want to go to this dinner because of it. I think we all have our excuses for not paying attention and giving God and giving Jesus the time that we need to give for the relationship that we want to have. And most of them are just like the ones that are in this story. They're normal course of events. I just got a new job and it takes all my time. I have social obligations and it takes all my time. I have this, that, and the other thing that I really like to do, and it takes all of my time. And while it is not specifically a dinner that we're invited to, it is a relationship with Jesus that we're invited to. And it takes time. And we have to set that time aside and make it a priority. And that's what I get out of this story. The people that were invited had other priorities. So I look at my life, and what other priorities do I have? What conflicts with my time with Jesus? And do I set aside time every day to foster this relationship? Because Jesus makes time for me every day, and in fact, every moment of every day. So this story is more than just a dinner. This story is about us today. And more than a dinner, a relationship with Jesus says, I so appreciate what you did for me when you came to this earth and you told your stories, and especially when you died on the cross for me, that I am going to make time for you every day. No excuses. No way out. I want to do this. I am going to prioritize it. I think each of us needs to examine our lives. If you're watching this, you make time for Jesus. You make time to think about what's going on. And so the question is, what's the priority? This right now is good. What's tomorrow? What's the next day? What's this afternoon? It's a 24/7 relationship with Jesus. And while we'll never spend 24/7 with Jesus, it's very important to carve out time and prioritize it to spend with Jesus. I hope you will consider this as you go through your day. Thank you.